For thousands of older Australians, the pension is more than just a government payment. It's the lifeline that keeps the bills paid, the fridge stocked, and the lights on. But right now, that lifeline is being pulled in different directions by a mix of economic pressure, government reforms, and new policy changes that many people aren't hearing about until it's too late. This week, some of the most important updates in years are about to hit, and they could directly affect how much money lands in your bank account, when it arrives, and even whether you remain eligible at all. The cost of living crisis has pushed more seniors into financial stress than at any point in the past decade. Groceries, utilities, fuel, and rent are all climbing at a pace that pension indexation simply hasn't been able to match. In response, the government is rolling out adjustments to the age pension payment thresholds and assets tests, but these changes aren't as straightforward as they sound. For some, they'll mean extra money in the fortnightly payment. For others, they could result in a sudden and unexpected reduction. At the same time, new Centrelink processing rules are being introduced, making it easier for some pensioners to report income but tightening compliance for others. This could impact part pension recipients who work casual hours or receive income from investments. On top of that, a proposal to change the deeming rates, something that hasn't moved in years, is now back on the table, which could directly change how much pension you're entitled to if you have savings or superannuation investments. There's also movement on rental assistance for seniors, with trial increases planned in certain regions to help fight housing insecurity, as well as fresh discussions around easing the rules for those who want to work part-time while keeping their pension. But hidden within all these announcements are fine print conditions, deadlines, and eligibility cut-offs that can make the difference between gaining an extra $50 a fortnight or losing hundreds overnight. This is why today's update is so critical, because if you don't fully understand these new rules before they take effect, you could be caught off guard, and by then, it may be too late to fix. Let's start by looking at what's driving all of this in the first place. Over the past year, Australia's economy has been balancing on a fine line between slowing down and overheating. Inflation has remained stubbornly high, particularly in areas that hit seniors hardest: groceries, utilities, and rent. The government, through the Department of Social Services and Services Australia, has been under increasing pressure to ensure that pension adjustments keep up with this reality. But while they've announced a series of changes, the details matter more than the headlines. Too many people see the big, bold number, pension going up, and don't realize that the increase might be swallowed almost instantly by rising living costs, or worse, offset by new rules that reduce eligibility. That's why understanding how these changes play out in real life is so important. The first major shift you'll notice is in the payment thresholds. This means the amount of income or assets you can have before your pension starts to reduce. For full pensioners, the income test has been adjusted slightly to allow a little more earnings before the payment tapers down. On the surface, this sounds great: more flexibility for seniors who might want to pick up a few hours of work or earn small amounts from investments. But here's the catch. Even with the changes, the taper rate, that is, how quickly your pension reduces once you pass the threshold, remains steep. Many part pensioners will find that an extra $100 in income could reduce their pension by a surprisingly large amount. This means you need to be strategic about how you earn and report your income, because sometimes earning a little more can actually leave you worse off in net terms. Now, let's talk about the assets test. This is where a lot of seniors get caught off guard, particularly those who own their home outright but have savings or investments. The government has increased the lower limit slightly, which means you can have a bit more in assets before it starts affecting your pension. However, the overall structure of the assets test hasn't changed much, and it's still one of the main reasons people lose eligibility. This is especially frustrating for those who have worked hard and saved over a lifetime, only to find that having a modest nest egg disqualifies them from support. And remember, assets aren't just cash in the bank. They include superannuation balances, certain investments, and even the market value of things like boats or caravans. The tricky part is that these values can change from year to year, meaning your eligibility might shift even if you haven't spent or earned anything differently. Another big change on the horizon is the potential adjustment to deeming rates. For years, deeming rates have been frozen, which many retirees have actually benefited from. In essence, deeming is a way Centrelink calculates your investment income for the purposes of the pension, regardless of the actual returns you get. With rates frozen, seniors have been able to earn higher returns from bank interest or investments without it affecting their pension too much. But with the economy moving and interest rates higher, there's pressure to unfreeze deeming rates and lift them closer to real-world levels. If this happens, even without you changing your investments, the government will assume you're earning more, and that could reduce your pension. This is why it's important to watch these policy discussions closely, because by the time a change is announced, it's often already in motion for the next payment cycle. Housing support is another area seeing movement. The rental assistance trial is being expanded in some regions where housing costs have hit crisis levels. For seniors who rent privately, this could be a welcome relief, especially in high-cost areas where pension payments simply don't stretch far enough to cover the basics. But as always, there's complexity here. The assistance isn't available to everyone automatically. You need to meet specific eligibility criteria, and it often requires you to proactively apply or update your details with Centrelink. Many seniors miss out simply because they don't know they qualify or because the paperwork feels too overwhelming. This is where keeping your records up to date becomes critical. A simple phone call or online update could be the difference between struggling and getting a much-needed boost. Now, let's address something that often goes under the radar: the changes to Centrelink's reporting processes. For pensioners who receive income from casual work, seasonal jobs, or investments, the reporting system is being modernized. This means more automation and less frequent manual reporting for some, but also tighter compliance checks. The idea is to reduce errors, but in practice, it also means that if the system detects a discrepancy, payments can be paused until it's resolved. For those living week to week, even a short delay can cause stress. So, while this update could make life easier for tech-savvy seniors, it's a reminder that knowing exactly what you need to report and when is non-negotiable. Another topic gaining momentum is the pension work bonus. There's growing support for extending the current arrangements that allow seniors to work more without losing their pension. This was introduced as a temporary measure to help fill workforce shortages, but it proved popular because it gave retirees the option to supplement their income without heavy penalties. If the government makes this permanent or expands it, it could open new opportunities for those who want to stay active in the workforce. But as with all policies, the fine print will matter. Will it apply to all types of work? Will self-employed seniors get the same treatment? These are the kinds of details that make or break the usefulness of the scheme. Beyond the direct financial changes, there's also the question of timing. Payment dates for the pension are being adjusted in certain weeks due to public holidays and processing changes. This might seem minor, but for those who budget tightly, a shift of even a day or two can cause issues with direct debits, bill payments, and rent. Knowing your exact payment schedule is more important than ever, and it's one reason why Services Australia has been pushing seniors to use the MyGov portal for up-to-date information. Of course, that assumes you have reliable internet access and are comfortable navigating online systems, which, let's be honest, isn't the case for everyone. We also need to discuss the political backdrop. With the next federal election on the horizon, pensions have become a key talking point. Both major parties are making promises, but history shows that not all promises survive the transition from campaign trail to policy reality. Seniors should be cautious about banking on changes that haven't been legislated yet. For example, proposals to dramatically lift pension rates or expand eligibility sound great, but unless they pass both houses of parliament, they remain just that, proposals. This is why understanding the legislative process is so valuable. It helps you separate what's likely to happen from what's just political noise. One area that's particularly interesting right now is the discussion around superannuation and how it interacts with the pension. There's a growing push to give seniors more flexibility in accessing their super without it heavily penalizing their pension eligibility. The logic is that people should be able to use their own retirement savings to improve their quality of life without losing the safety net. But opponents argue this could undermine the sustainability of the system. While no final decision has been made, it's another example of how quickly the pension landscape can shift and why staying informed is your best defense. All of these changes, big and small, point to a simple truth: the pension system is not static. It's constantly evolving in response to economic conditions, political pressures, and demographic shifts. For seniors, this means that setting your budget on autopilot and assuming nothing will change is risky. Instead, You need to treat your pension like any other important financial asset, something you actively monitor, review, and adjust as circumstances change. The good news is that by staying ahead of the curve, you can often take advantage of changes rather than being blindsided by them. Let's not forget that the pension is just one part of the support system for older Australians. There are concessions on utilities, transport discounts, and healthcare benefits that often go underutilized simply because people aren't aware of them. In times of rising costs, these smaller supports can make a big difference. But again, they require you to be proactive. No one from Centrelink is going to call you up and say, "We think you might be eligible for this extra help." It's on you to ask the question, check the website, or visit an office. That might feel unfair, but it's the reality of how the system works. When you look at the big picture, what we're seeing right now is a pension system under pressure, but also in transition. There are real opportunities to secure more support, but there are also real risks of losing out if you don't adapt. Whether it's adjusting how you manage your savings to avoid crossing asset thresholds, timing your income to stay under the taper rate, or simply making sure you're on the right rent assistance rate, small actions can have a big impact. And in a cost of living environment like this, every extra dollar counts. The bottom line is this: don't assume someone else is looking out for your financial well-being. The pension changes happening this week and in the months ahead are complex, interconnected, and sometimes contradictory. But with the right information and the willingness to act on it, you can navigate them successfully. That's exactly why we're having this conversation today, because the earlier you understand the changes, the better prepared you'll be to protect your income and your quality of life.